There's a particular kind of quiet that arrives in the bedroom once the children are finally gone. The house no longer has the buffer of footsteps in the hallway or the low noise of young adult lives. The evenings are longer, and in that new silence, the old pattern becomes impossible to soft focus. He finishes, he turns, his breathing settles within minutes. You stay on your side of the bed, the sheet cool against your skin, and feel the same hollow space that has been there for years. Only now there is nothing left to distract from it. No children to check on, no morning chaos to prepare for, just the clear, quiet fact that the attention never really stayed with you, and the quieter the house became, the more complete that absence felt. It is not dramatic. It is not cruel in any obvious way. It is simply finished, and the finished feeling lands harder in a house that is finally still. I want to tell you about Elaine. She is 62, married 34 years, 4 children. The youngest left home 2 years ago. For a long stretch of that marriage, there were years of sharp weather, raised voices, doors that closed too hard, the kind of sudden tension that made everyone in the house go still. He went to counseling. He stopped the outbursts. By the time the children were teenagers, the dramatic episodes had largely disappeared. Friends and relatives said he had done the work, yet the air in the house never fully settled. Even now, years later, a certain tightness remains. When he comes home tired or when plans shift without warning, his tone stays controlled, but the body still carries a low signal. The adult children still lower their voices slightly around certain moods. Elaine has spent so many years managing the emotional temperature of the home that she barely notices she is still doing it. In the bedroom, the parallel pattern became clearer once the house emptied. Early on, she had been patient and generous, hoping presence would eventually open. Later, she tried speaking more directly. He would make short attempts that always circled back to his own release. After the children left, she expected the quieter evenings might create space for something different. Instead, the sex became cleaner, shorter, more self-contained. He finishes, he turns, the night ends. Elaine is not loud in her disappointment. She is simply tired in a quiet, accumulated way. She has begun to wonder whether this is simply what long marriage looks like at this age, or whether something more precise is happening inside him. What is happening inside him is rarely named. After the children are grown, many men experience a quiet recalibration of energy. The long years of providing, of managing household chaos, of containing or repairing their own earlier reactivity have left a residue. Even when the dramatic anger is gone, the body remembers the cost of being the person everyone was slightly afraid of. The home never became a place of complete nervous system rest. It became a place of managed calm. In that environment, sustained sexual presence, the kind that requires staying attentive to another person's slower, more variable rhythm, is experienced as an additional demand rather than a shared pleasure. Prolonged focus on her body asks him to remain open and responsive for a stretch of time his system now treats as expensive. It asks for a level of vulnerability and generosity that feels risky when the emotional climate of the house still carries the faint echo of old tension. What looks like selfishness from the outside is often a form of energy conservation and self-protection. He has learned, usually without conscious decision, that the safest version of sex is the short, goal-oriented kind. It satisfies a physical need. It avoids the possibility of impatience or failure on his part, and it ends before any deeper emotional exposure is required. The longer, more attentive version would require him to stay present in a body and a relationship that never fully signaled, "You are completely safe here." Once the children are gone and the daily noise decreases, that calculation does not automatically reverse. In many men, it hardens. The quieter house does not free energy for her. It simply makes the existing protective pattern more visible. There is also the matter of remaining life energy. At 55, 60, 65, the reservoir is finite. Many men begin to allocate that energy carefully. Work, if it is still present. Health management. The desire for uncomplicated downtime, the quiet awareness that the years ahead are limited, all of these compete. Extending himself sexually in a way that prioritizes her rhythm feels like spending currency he is no longer sure he can afford, especially when the relational atmosphere has never fully settled into mutual ease. He may still care for her, he may still want the marriage to continue. Those things can exist alongside the withdrawal of presence in bed. The two are not contradictory inside his experience. Caring does not automatically translate into the willingness to stay open and attentive when openness has historically carried a cost. This is the part that is almost never spoken. The residual fear in the house does not only affect the wife and children. It also keeps the man himself in a low-grade state of self-monitoring. He may no longer explode, but he still scans for the possibility of tension. That scanning uses energy. The energy that remains is then rationed, and prolonged generosity in the bedroom is often one of the first things to be rationed. The residual scanning is quiet and almost automatic. It happens in small moments that look ordinary from the outside. A change in plans, a question that carries a slight edge, a long silence after a disagreement that never quite resolved. His body registers these things before his mind does. The shoulders stay a fraction tighter. The answers stay shorter. He does not explode. He simply remains slightly braced. That bracing uses fuel. Over years, it becomes a background cost he barely notices, the same way a person stops hearing a refrigerator hum that has been present for a decade. The energy that might once have been available for lingering attention, for staying curious about her slower rhythm, for remaining open after his own release, is already partially spent on this low-level monitoring. What remains is carefully allocated. Uncomplicated rest, health, the desire not to create new friction, the quiet wish to keep the remaining years as smooth as possible. In that accounting, prolonged sexual presence becomes optional. It is not that he decides, in so many words, "I will no longer stay with her." The decision is quieter and more structural. Full presence would require him to drop the residual brace, to stay inside a body and a relationship that still carries the faint memory of tension. At 58 or 62, that feels more expensive than it did at 40. The body has less surplus. The awareness that time is finite makes any unnecessary expenditure feel heavier. So the shorter version of sex becomes the default. It meets a physical need. It ends cleanly. It does not ask him to remain open longer than his system is willing to risk. This is why caring and withdrawal can exist side by side inside the same man. He can still want the marriage. He can still feel loyalty, shared history, even affection. Those feelings do not automatically generate the willingness to spend the particular kind of energy that attentive presence requires. Caring is an emotion. Sustained presence is a physiological and emotional expenditure. When the home has never fully become a place of nervous system rest, that expenditure is rationed. The rationing is not dramatic. It simply becomes the shape of ordinary nights. Once the children are grown, the pattern often hardens rather than softens. The daily noise that once masked the absence is gone. The evenings are longer. There is more room for the protective habit to show itself clearly. Some men notice the emptiness and begin to move toward it. Others settle more deeply into the shorter, safer version of connection because the quieter house has removed the last distraction. The absence becomes cleaner, more complete, and therefore easier to maintain. What looks from the outside like selfishness is, inside him, often experienced as enough. Enough to keep the physical connection alive. Enough to avoid the discomfort of prolonged openness. Enough to protect the limited energy that remains. The quieter private thought is rarely spoken even to himself. This is sustainable. This does not ask more than I can currently give. This keeps the surface of the marriage intact without requiring me to drop the residual guard that has become familiar. That private acceptance is the part most women never hear named. The selfishness, then, is not primarily a failure of technique or of desire for her. It is the visible result of a system that has decided full presence is no longer a safe or sustainable expenditure. She cannot motivate what his nervous system has already classified as too costly. Explaining more clearly, offering more of herself, waiting for the quieter years to magically open something. These efforts usually deepen her own exhaustion without changing the underlying allocation of his energy. The allocation was set by years of residual bracing and by the finite arithmetic of remaining life force. It does not shift because she is patient or because she asks with more precision. What becomes available to her, once she sees this clearly, is a different kind of decision. Not a decision about how to repair the bedroom. A decision about whether a house that offers only relative safety is the place she is willing to spend the years she has left. Elaine reached that quieter seeing slowly. There was no single dramatic conversation. There was simply the accumulation of nights that ended the same way, and the growing recognition that the pattern was not going to soften on its own. The residual tightness in the air had never fully left. The attention in bed had never fully stayed. Once the children were gone, both became impossible to overlook. Some women in her place will find enough residual goodwill and shared history to stay and negotiate small, concrete changes from a place of self-respect rather than hope. Others will recognize that relative safety is no longer enough for the years that remain. Either path begins in the same place. The refusal to keep carrying the full weight of trying to draw presence from a man whose system has already decided how much he is willing to give. There is no technique that restores what was withdrawn. There is only the clearer seeing and the quieter authority that comes with it. She is allowed to protect the quality of the life still ahead of her.